just a heartache, heartache, waiting to happen.
Well, friends, that's Heartache Waiting to Happen by Mr. Cutter Elliott. And we had the pleasure of meeting Cutter at an incredible event where he was giving a talk. He was talking about his life. He was telling his story. And it was interesting enough that we really wanted to bring him together with myself and our team over here at Unity Behavioral and talk a little bit more in detail one-on-one with Cutter about that life, about that story, and spend some time hopefully sharing some wisdom with the rest of our community. So with that, Cutter, how are you? You want to give an introduction to yourself, my friend?
I'm good. How you guys doing?
We're doing great, man. Tell us about yourself. Give everybody who hasn't had the chance to meet you a little intro to the Cutter Elliott.
All right. Well, my name's Cutter Elliott. I was born 8 weeks premature, diagnosed with cerebral palsy, and then later diagnosed with autism. Doctors told my mother I'd never walk, I'd never talk, I'd never sing, play guitar, graduate high school, let alone graduate college. And when I was about 7 years old, I started performing Johnny Cash songs. At the age of 4 years old, my grandfather, my pawpaw, my mom's dad, introduced me to the music of Johnny Cash, and because of my autism, I fixated on that. And he's just been a huge influence on me. And then so at a young age, I wanted to sing and play guitar, and we found some local events and music venues that had country music, and ever since I was about 7 years old, I was performing Johnny Cash songs, and then that evolved into Waylon Jennings, Willie Nelson, Chris Christopherson, of course, the Highwaymen group that Johnny Cash was in the 80s. And then my best friend introduced me to George Strait, and I became a huge George Strait fan when I was in about 8th grade.
You ended up meeting him, didn't you?
I did end up meeting him in 2017. My uncle, who's a entrepreneur, restaurateur here in Oklahoma, had the opportunity to go to a tequila event in Tulsa, which is about 2 hours away from where we live. And when he heard that George Strait was going to be there, and it was George's Tequila Codigo, he surprised me, and we went out there, and I got to meet him and talk to him, and
I bet that was an experience. You were, if I remember correctly, you were wearing George Strait attire, like you had a shirt and a belt buckle on that was George Strait's stuff, but you didn't know you were going to meet him. So it was just a random coincidence.
No, I was actually supposed to play golf with my uncle that day, and I ran into him the night before, and he said, I got some bad news. He said, I can't play golf, but I'm going to pick you up, and we're going to go somewhere tomorrow night. He said, wear something like you'd wear on stage. So I just wore George Strait jeans and a George Strait shirt. And right when he picked me up, I said, do I need a sport coat for this event? He goes, yeah, go ahead and bring one. And I was glad I wore one because everybody at the event had a sport coat on.
Yeah, sure.
But it was a wonderful experience.
You know, I don't know if I told you this when we met, but my team was sitting there laughing at me, or they were, I don't think laughing is the right word. They were more like shocked because you started singing, and you're singing songs that I probably haven't heard since I was 10, 12 years old. It took me back to like a road trip through the middle of nowhere in Alabama with my uncle. And I'm singing every word, and they're like, wait a second, I don't even know who sings this song. I've never heard about it. And I'm there word for word with you.
Yeah.
It's a dying genre. But hopefully a genre that's coming back, I think.
I hope so.
Well, you know, Cutter Elliott's going to be the next big name in music. So, talk to me, because your story is one that I really, really want parents. You know, I have the fortune, and sometimes it might seem like misfortune, of speaking to so many moms and dads who are just lost. They kind of, you know, you hear something like autism, and you said it yourself. Usually it comes with a note from a doctor that says, yep, this is it. You have a kid, and they're going to be your responsibility for life because they're not going to make it. They're not going to go anywhere. They're not going to do anything. And I think it's a pretty harrowing thing to hear as a parent. Mm-hmm. And I talked to the parents right then and there. I'm one of the first calls after that diagnosis, where the fear is still prominent and the doubt is still very, very much top of mind. There's a ton of uncertainty. And then there's not nearly as much information around a story like yours. But in my experience, that's actually the outcome, right? Like, I guess I could say it differently, is the only reason that so many kids in the long run, in their 30s and their 40s and their 50s, don't have skills is because early on their parents heard there's nothing you can do and they believed it. Versus your mom, for example, she heard there's nothing you can do and she was like, not a chance, buddy.
Right. My mom, I have to give her all the credit. She never told me anything that the doctors were telling her. The doctors were telling her, like I said before, I'd never walk, I'd never talk, never sing, play guitar, graduate high school, or let alone graduate college. And I graduated from high school, Norman North High School here in Norman, Oklahoma, in May of 2014. And the Academy of Contemporary Music at the University of Central Oklahoma is UCO is a university in Edmond, Oklahoma, and the Academy of Contemporary Music is an extension of UCO in Oklahoma City. And it was started by the Flaming Lips manager, Scott Booker. And I guess they have ACM overseas and somewhere in England. And he brought that same kind of concept over to UCO. And in the fall of 2014, I applied, and that was the first year that it actually became accredited school, which meant that where before you could just apply to ACM and either get accepted or not.
Sure.
The year I started, I had to actually get accepted to UCO before ACM would even look at me.
Right.
And so because of my grades weren't the best, just because the school was
all right.
so difficult.
That's pretty common for the rest of us too. My grades weren't the best either, but look what I'm doing.
Absolutely. And anyway, we got it appealed and to talk to several people, and I ended up getting enrolled in there in the fall of 2014, and went for 2 years and got my associates in vocal performance. And that fall, they started a bachelor program. Well, I wasn't quite done with school, so I went ahead and just got my bachelor's degree. And they've changed the name of it since I got it, but when I got it, it was Applied Technologies, which basically how I understand it is I take what I learned at the school and applied it to whatever I do outside of school in the real world.
That's brilliant. And so what was this upbringing like, right? Your mom has all of these prognoses from a doctor. You're not going to walk. You're definitely not going to play guitar. You're not going very far in school. And so you're not going very far in life. And she says, no way, brother. I'm not taking it. Yep. And what happens from there? What does she do?
Well, she never told me anything the doctor said. She just told me, that I was, normal, just like everybody else. It would just take me longer to achieve things than it does other people. I remember when I first started learning how to play the guitar, my fingers hurt and they're calloused, and I didn't want to do it. And the example she used to me was, Tiger Woods didn't learn how to play golf in one day. He practiced and practiced and practiced.
Right.
And so she goes, you just got to keep practicing and practicing and practicing.
And so your mother doesn't allow these psychological limitations on you, right?
No.
She's not allowing you to put these barriers in your mind.
Right.
And then she's giving you examples about, I don't know if you've read the book, but Malcolm Gladwell has a book called Outliers that talks about the 10,000 hour rule. She's giving you examples about how these 10,000 hours of practice are necessary to gain mastery in any field. Right?
Right.
At this time, had you already defined for yourself what you wanted? Like, had your fixation and your infatuation with country music, classical country music, already developed, or was that later?
I think it had already uh, started developing because I mean I was listening to I was performing on stage at the age of 2.5. My mom enrolled me in this little music preschool.
All right, Mom.
And of course, back then I wasn't singing country. I wasn't singing Johnny Cash quite yet. But at the age of 4 years old, her dad my papa introduced me to the music of Johnny Cash and Waylon Jennings and Merle Haggard. That's stuff he grew up listening to, and it was Johnny that I was fixated on.
Johnny Cash was your first musical love there. I love it. And so, one of the things that I talked to you about, you and I have spent a little time talking about is this concept of ikigai. It's the Japanese principle.
Right.
And it's a principle that's really designed to encompass a few things that we miss here in the States. First and foremost is, what can you make money doing? I think in the States, we figured that one out pretty well. That's all we care about. And then there's this idea of, what do you love? What are you passionate about? What does the world need? And what are you good at? Right?
Right.
And so all four of those things kind of work together in harmony to create what is ultimately a purposeful life. And so, part of the challenge is early on in a child's life, we really don't know what they love or what they're going to be good at. And in your case, and I think this is the case with a lot of children with autism. Actually, I know this to be the case with a lot of children with autism, is there's a fixation on something. That's one of the common character traits of autism, is that we quickly identify something that we love and we fixate on it. And your mom didn't shift away from that. She actually leaned into it, which means that you were able to start building skills in that direction.
Right.
From there, she gave you the perspective and the mindset to focus and kind of hone yourself, right? She said, you want this, you got to practice it. And she kept reminding you of that. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah. And the big thing that she didn't do was tell me that I have autism or I have cerebral palsy. She just told me I was no different than anybody else. It would just take me a little longer to achieve certain things than it does other people. Right.
Do you advocate for that? Not telling your children that they have some type of condition or some type of limitation?
Absolutely.
Why is that?
Well, because I feel like if as a parent you tell your child you have this that's standing in your way, you won't be able to achieve this. I think anybody can achieve anything that they want if they put their mind to it. And I think if they do have obstacles like autism or cerebral palsy or whatever it may be, just don't tell them that they can't achieve something. Just tell them that they can achieve anything that they want to. It just may take a little longer for you than it might be for somebody else.
What do you say to the parent that believes saying something like telling their child what they're going to be faced with prepares them for the world?
Can you rephrase that question?
Yeah, there's so many moms and dads that their belief on this topic is, well, I need to tell my child what's going to happen or what obstacles they have so that they can prepare for them, right? And that's the reason that they tell their child you have autism, or that's the reason they tell their child you're different, right? Some people use it in the context of gender. Some people use it in the context of disability. Some people use it in the context of ethnicity, right? But there's this notion of, I'm going to explain to you, my child, that there are certain differences you have, or there are certain obstacles you may face. And you're kind of giving the opposite advice of that. But for the parent that believes that's necessary information, what would you say to them? Because you've lived this, right? You've lived an alternative perspective.
Right. I would just like this, I would tell them the same thing that my mother told me, find whatever it is that their child is into and just hone in on that and look at it from a positive perspective. Like for me, it was music and golf, but mostly music. For somebody else, it may be they want to be a firefighter, or they may want to be a doctor, or, something like that. So I would just tell those parents, you don't have to tell them that their child has a disability or whatever. Just find out whatever it is they're fixated on and just hone in on that and encourage them to do that.
And they don't even have to, from such a young age, know what they want to do. Just the fact that they're fixated on something means that you can engage with that something. You can play around. You can stumble and fall and get back up towards that something.
I mean, I didn't even know I had autism or cerebral palsy till I was 16 years old. And how I found out was, American Idol had come to Oklahoma City, actually on my birthday, on my 16th birthday. And I applied and went to the audition. And in my bio, my mom had typed up that I had Asperger's, and which is a form of autism. And I asked my mom, I said, what is that? And then that's when she explained to me what it was. And that's when it kind of started to make sense to me. Oh, that's why I constantly think about Johnny Cash, or that's why I constantly get this song stuck in my head, or video. I constantly go back to this music video or whatever it is.
Yeah, your ability to fixate on something. And I say ability because most people, like, it's interesting when I hear people talk about this. Sometimes it's professionals, sometimes it's medical professionals, right? So, or even just general professionals like my peers in the industry. Or sometimes when I hear people who don't know much about it clinically or haven't researched as much talk about it, they talk about fixation as a symptom. And I don't know that I necessarily agree with that, because fixation is a necessary ingredient in success for any domain, right? Like if you're going to be a computer scientist, or like, for example, my entire life, I've fixated on the concept of leadership. Every single thing I've ever done has been contextualized in this idea of leadership. But at a really young age, I had this idea that I wanted to build these teams that solved these world problems and all this other stuff. And so I was just like, if I was in an English class and I didn't think what I was doing was related to leadership, I didn't care, right? If I read a book and it wasn't related to leadership, I didn't care, right? And so, I haven't been diagnosed with autism. My team debates this, but the point is that in order to be successful in any domain, fixation is a critical input. It's necessary. It's an ingredient, right? And so I find it fascinating that we talk in the context of autism, there's almost a negative connotation with fixation.
Right.
But Tiger Woods was fixated on golf. Serena Williams fixated on tennis, right? Michael Jordan fixated on basketball. We're talking about thousands of hours of effort dedicated to a specific domain for all of these individuals.
Right.
That's fixation at its finest.
Right.
Well, do you still fixate? Is this something that's still embedded in your head? Like, are you still always thinking about Johnny Cash? Are you still always thinking about music? I heard something like 600 songs in your mental library.
Yes, I always fixate on something, whether it's, like here recently, I've been watching, the Andy Griffith Show on YouTube, so here the last several days I've been watching clips of that. So right now, I guess my fixation must be the Andy Griffith Show. I don't, but yes, I constantly, still fixate on different things, and it doesn't necessarily have to be music. It could be golf. It could be college football is coming up. I'm a huge Oklahoma football fan, and I love college football in general. The older I get, the more I learn to love it, and I keep up with the statistics of who's in the top 10, who's in the top 4, and who's going to go to this bowl game, or who I think is going to go to this bowl game. So I'm getting really excited about the upcoming football season. I've been also watching a lot of old Oklahoma football games, so that's another thing I quote unquote fixate on.
I think my alma mater, Auburn, is going to see you guys this year, aren't we?
Yeah.
Late September?
I think so. Yeah.
You guys are home, so go easy on us.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember that game last year. That was a nail biter.
Who ended up
But
winning that one last year?
I think we did.
You did by 6 points or something like that, a single
I think
touchdown,
so.
maybe?
Yeah. Yeah. But our first year in the SEC, a lot of people think that OU and Texas should have just stuck in the Big 12, but I think here in a few years we'll be geared up, ready to go. I think it's just going to take a few years of building the teams.
Yeah, we saw the same thing with like Kentucky and Vanderbilt. And
yeah,
it's a different league. It's a different framework. It's a different, well, not different league, but if it's a different division, it's a different framework. It's a different style of football. They all pick up their energy eventually.
Right.
So I wanted to talk to you about the later life, right? And to some extent, we're building a framework for parents who are going through this journey. You get to your teen years and now you're in school. What was that experience like for you?
School was very challenging for me, especially when it came to my basics like English and math and science. I remember I was on an IEP, and and what I remember from my IEP is basically I got extra time on tests, and if I needed a few extra days to turn in some assignments, I could do that. I always tried to get it done on time. Occasionally, sure, if I had stayed up extremely late, I would do as much as I could before I had to get to bed. But I remember there were nights I stayed up really, really late with the help of my parents to help me get it done. Yeah.
What is, for those who don't know, what is an IEP?
It's an individual education
program, I think is the word.
Program, I think, is what it is. And it's basically each individual that is on one has their own way of not learning, but like for me, I got extra time on tests. I could go to my resource room anytime I needed to. I had a resource teacher that would help me with different assignments, or I was in special English and math classes up until I was a junior in high school, and then my junior English class I remember was a actual real English class, and but it's basically just an individual learning path that kids could go on if they need to for whatever reason. For me, it was extra time on tests. I needed enlarged font because I had trouble seeing. I have trouble seeing. Certain tests I could have read to me.
How individualized is it really, though? Like, are you being taught in a different way than the other students, or is it just like, oh, okay, these special considerations are made?
It kind of depends on the class. Like, I always got to sit in the front row so I could see the board and hear the teacher better.
Sure.
But for me, the only difference was when I would take tests, I would go into my resource teacher's room and take the test, and depending on what the kind of the test was, they either read it to me or, sat there beside me and helped me in any way that I needed help with, whether it was a word I didn't understand or, something like that.
I see.
And everybody that has one, it's different for everybody.
Outside of school, did you go through any other types of programmings or therapies or anything like that?
Yeah, physical therapy. I did several physical therapies. As a matter of fact, one of the ladies, I think her name was Miss Teresa, had me listen to music. I couldn't watch TV and I couldn't do anything but just sit and listen to this music for about 30 minutes off and on. And I would just remember doing it, but I don't understand what that what it was achieving.
Like
But
maybe it was supposed to help you sit still or stay calm for a period of time.
Right. And
No.
and I've had several foot surgeries on my right foot because my right side was the side that was affected with my cerebral palsy. Excuse me. And so I had to go to several physical therapy doctor's appointments to help strengthen that.
I see. And related to anything else, I mean, did you have any type of specialized tutoring outside of your IEP or specialized development programs?
Not that I can think of. No.
What was your experience like with other kids in the class?
I didn't make that many friends, so to speak, in high school or elementary school through high school. I think just because because I was on an IEP and I had special learning disabilities, as people say. I had a very difficult time making friends. I can remember before I started going to public school, I went to private school for about 2 or 3 years from preschool up to second grade, and I had more friends there than I did in high school and middle school. I think because in the private school I didn't have an IEP, as they say, and that's why I ended up having to go to a public school because I just wasn't learning the way I should have been learning at the private school. But
is that to say that the IEP put you in different rooms or different environments that made it more difficult to make friends? Like, why is it that you didn't have as many friends when you had the IEP?
I've always been. Now, let me say this: I do have friends that I made through school that I even keep in touch with to this day.
Sure.
But I think overall, I'm uncomfortable around my peers.
Sure.
I think because I'm so much more mature than they were, and what I mean by that is, I acted, more mature than a lot of kids.
You're what they would describe as an old soul, like young kid, but you have this old soul energy, and so a lot of the things that you're interested in, they might not be as interested in.
Right, and it was just,
I see,
and I didn't really have that much to talk to my peers about because I was interested in different things that they weren't interested in. Now, when I got into high school, like I said, golf is a huge passion of mine, and when I was a little kid doing golf camps in the summers, I befriended Dennis Etter. He used to be the Norman North golf coach, and matter of fact, he was my golf coach when I went to high school. I wasn't good enough to play on the team because they are a D1 school, but Coach Etter knew that I needed a place to belong, and I did try out for the golf team my freshman year and didn't make it, but he knew I needed a place to belong, and so he made me his team manager all 4 years of my high school career, and that was kind of really the first place that I did develop friendships, and because I was in a group, they were interested in golf, so I had something in common for people to talk about, and I talked about golf to the other teammates, but even then it was difficult to make friends because if I saw somebody was doing something that they shouldn't have been doing, I would go report it to coach because I felt like I was his assistant. I was his manager, but I felt almost like an assistant coach. And so because of that, a lot of people,
they would create distance from me.
Right.
Yeah. So that's interesting. So we have really two key things that we've talked about so far is embrace the fixation, like lean into it and help find pathways to develop towards that fixation and frankly
Right.
use it is probably the best. And the second is find a village, like find a community where, I love how you said a place to belong.
Right.
And I guess actually a third thing in our formula that we're building here, which I'm now going to say this in your terms because it's a quote that I'm taking directly from the Cutter Elliott music. Can't, never, could, do, nothing. Right? Don't put the psychological barriers on young children for any reason. It doesn't matter what's going on. Just don't allow kids to see their limitations, because as soon as they can see them, they become real. But the miracle stories only happen because, as they say, ignorance is bliss.
Just say that again. I'm sorry.
I said the miracle stories, they really only happen because, and I said, as they say, ignorance is bliss. Like when we're not aware, we're able to just, okay, I'm going to go in this direction and not be none the wiser. Right.
And another thing I would like to mention also is, for the listeners out there, I think it's very, very important for somebody with autism to find a friend that really looks at you as who you are. When I was, and forgive me if I get choked up, I'd like to talk about my best friend who I lost back in 21 to cancer. But when I was 7 years old, I got involved in the Country Music Singers Association, the Oklahoma chapter, and they have them all over the United States, and they have a local, state, and national competition. And the national competition is in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. And it's every year, and I did that for several years, from about 2007 to 2010 probably. But I met this gentleman by the name of, his name was Cliff Moore, and he was much, much older than me. Old enough to be my grandpa or dad or somebody like that. But I remember I went to audition for the CMSA, but at the time I didn't realize it was an audition. I thought I was just going to a karaoke night, open mic night, but I later discovered it was an audition. Well, Cliff and Helen, his wife, were there, and from that moment on, we struck up a friendship, and he was really kind of the first person outside of family. We adopted him into our family, but he was really kind of the first person to look at me as Cutter and not afraid to be Cutter's friend. And I think that that's important for somebody with autism or with any superpower, as I like to call it. I don't like to use the word disability. I think it's important for anybody to have a friend like that. Like I said, he passed away in 21 of cancer, but I have another friend that I've met through my job, that kind of the same thing. You know, she's become my best friend, and just looks at me as Cutter, not as Cutter who gets up and sings, Cutter who plays golf, Cutter who has autism or cerebral palsy, but just Cutter. And I think it's important to have people like that in your life, because it gives you more of a purpose.
It gives you more of a purpose. It's a fascinating thing to say. Do you mind expanding upon it more?
Well, because sometimes I feel like people with autism or any kind of superpower, sometimes we can get lost in our own little world, and sometimes I feel like the average person that doesn't understand it may look at us as different, or I don't want to be around that person because they're different. And so I feel like people like Cliff and my friend Max, I think they just look at us as just regular human beings, which we are. We just have, different obstacles that we have to go through. And so I think, that it's important to have people like that just are there for you through thick and thin. And, I hope everybody with autism can find a friend like that, because there's nothing like it.
It's the old toy story. You got a friend in me.
Right.
The interesting thing I'm thinking about as you're talking is that there's really two sides to this, Cutter. Part of it is that parents should teach their children with autism or whatever, to know how to go out into the world and find that friend, and identify the difference between someone who's going to look at them as who they are and for who they are and just be a good friend, and someone who might not be as open.
Right.
But the other side of it is true as well, which is we should all have the ability to look at everyone as who they are.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so it's partly it's about receiving, and partly it's about how we give and how we show up for other people. And I really think, regardless of person, that's an important message for all of us to understand. It's a different way to be in the world when we're able to just walk up to a human with no preconceived notions and be interested enough to figure out that human. And I think the world is a special place. Like, it's a really special adventure when you get to go and engage with everyone that way, because there's a lot of uniqueness out there.
Right.
Do you show up in that way for other people?
I try to any way that I can. I think it's important to spread kindness in the world, and especially nowadays, I feel like the world needs a little more kindness. Just like the Glenn Campbell song is, try a little kindness. Because we're all human, and we all make mistakes. We all, have our own issues and things that we're into. So we might as well all just love each other. That's the way I look at it.
I love that. All right. Well, now we're in your high school. We shifted to from your high school to your college years. And at what point did you really start pursuing music full time?
I would say end of high school, beginning of college. I knew from a young age I wanted to do it, and as a matter of fact, before I had discovered ACM at UCO, I had really no desire to go to college, because I knew I wanted to be a musician. I wanted to move to Nashville and try my luck at it as a musician. And after high school, and I discovered ACM, and I thought, this may be a good opportunity to go here for 4 years, 2 years, 4 years. I ended up going for 4 years, but and learn as much as I can about the industry. And so I had some wonderful memories from there.
And what has life looked like from there? I mean, are you independent? Have you managed to gain your independence? Are you working towards that? Like, what do you see for yourself now, based on everything that you've developed, and how you're going to live forward?
Well, I understand that nowadays being a professional musician is not as easy as it sometimes sounds like it's going to be. So reality hit me when I moved back from Nashville. I realized I had to. Well, I guess let me start from here. I had the opportunity to move to Nashville, and recorded an album with some of the top guys in Nashville. Had that opportunity, and I didn't want to pass that up. And I used Dave Rowe, who was Johnny Cash's last bass player, Pete Abbott, who was Tom Jones' drummer, Kenny Vaughn, Marty Stewart's guitar player, just to name a few musicians, Russ Paul, the #1 session steel guitar player in Nashville. And so we recorded this album, and I tried my luck at Texas radio, and then we went to national radio, and it did fairly well. It went up to number 50. Heartache Waiting to Happen went up to number 55 in the charts, Nashville charts, but it just wasn't enough to get the likes of a agent or of a record label, because
Sure.
my dream was it still is to become a touring and recording artist. And so after about 10 months living in Nashville, I moved back home and
The name of your album is Cutter Elliott, right?
Yeah, Cutter Elliott, Heartache Waiting to Happen is the
Heartache Waiting to Happen is the okay.
And so I moved back home and got a part-time job, as sometimes you have to do as a musician, and I still play locally around here and write songs as much as I can, and that goal still hasn't changed. It's just I'm not living in Nashville. I'm not currently right now touring radio, but I would love to get back in the studio and record some more, and hopefully still have that opportunity to tour radio again, or just because I had to move back home doesn't mean the dream has to stop.
That's right. Well, I've known many musicians. That's exactly right. I've known many musicians. I know many musicians, and it sounds like you're living the musician's dream exactly right now, as it should be, which is you go, you try it out, and then you realize how tough of a road it is, because music is one of those 1% of 1% of 1% fields, right?
Right.
There's the people who make it, there's the people who don't, and there is no middle ground. Like you're
Right.
either that or not. And there's a lot more people that want to make it than people who can make it.
Right. And I'll just go ahead and say this, for the listener out there who, may need to hear this. I could look at it, at my experience and my heroes. I can look at it two different ways. I can look at it as, okay, well, I just turned 30, and I can look back at all the things that I've achieved and all the friends that I've made and accomplishments that I've done, and say I'm living a good life, and I'll continue moving forward. Or I can look at it as, Johnny Cash, when he was 30, he had already had, a couple kids and 2 record deals and, 3 or 4 #1 hits. George Strait, when he was my age, he was signed a 2-year record. He had been on MCI Records for a couple years, and on his way up to the top. I could look at it that way and be like, well, I haven't achieved that, so what have I done? But I choose to look at it as all the things that I have done and I have achieved. I don't know if that makes any sense or not, but
it makes a lot of sense. And there are plenty of people who the opposite of that has been true as well, which is that they didn't even start working in their fields until, or they definitely didn't make any success in their field until they were in their 40s, 50s, or 60s. So I don't know that I necessarily think age to be too much of an identifier. I mean, I had a 10-year long career that I left to go and now work in early childhood education, which is completely different than the tech sector. So we all go through many adventures, and we have many chapters, right, along these journeys.
Yes.
I got a big question for you, Cutter. So, really 2 more, but the one that I would love for you to expand upon is, what do you want any parent who hears this to take away? I mean, a big part of the reason we do this is because the belief around how to work with children who have autism and the reality are very different. People have good intentions and produce bad results, I think.
Right.
And ultimately, the person who's hurt is the child.
Right.
And so it's a lot easier to hear from somebody who's lived and now created a successful life, right?
Right.
What is it you want a parent to take away? What is it you want the next parent who hears those horrible words that are not true at all to realize?
Well, it goes back to what my mom did. You know, she heard that I wouldn't be able to play guitar, sing, graduate high school, graduate college, and she took that as, well, I'm not going to tell my son anything other than it's going to just take him a little bit harder to achieve things. You know, so I would just tell that parent to, you know, find whatever it is that their child is into and really hone in on that and encourage them to do that. Don't tell them anything that the doctor said, you know, just encourage them to do what it is that they want to do, but tell them, you know, something along the lines of, you know, it will be difficult for you to achieve certain things in life, but you're just going to have to figure out how to adapt to that and focus on the things that is easier for you to do.
Sure.
Or it's what you're interested in.
Sure. I love it, man. This is incredible. And then most importantly, my second question, how do people find you? Like, how do people get in contact with Cutter, and how do we make this dream turn into a reality?
You can follow me on Facebook and Instagram, Cutter Elliott Music, Elliott 2 L's, 2 T's. I'm also on Twitter also.
Do you tweet? Well, I guess it's not tweeting anymore. Do you post on X?
I mostly just share other things, like if Johnny Cash or George Strait post something, or I mostly just retweet. But I use Facebook and Instagram probably more than Twitter. I don't even know how you even find me on Twitter. I think it's just Cutter Music. I do have a Twitter account.
And how regularly are you posting? Because I was looking at your YouTube earlier, and it looks like you kind of slowed down a little bit.
Yeah, YouTube, I haven't posted as much as I should. But I post where I perform on Facebook and Instagram almost daily.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
We got to pump up the YouTube, Cutter. We got to get it going.
Yes.
Man.
Yes.
That's your connection to the globe.
I got to get back at the YouTube thing. I took a little bit of a break from that, but hopefully I'll get back at it.
Anything else you want to say, my friend?
I just want to encourage everybody out there to find out whatever it is that they want to do and do it the best as they can.
Cutter, I really appreciate you, and I most of anything else, you're the, I don't know, have you ever seen the movie Ratatouille? You know what I'm talking about?
Bits and pieces of it, yeah.
There's a scene at the end where a food critic he takes a bite of food and it flashes back to his mom making the food. It's like it's a reminder of home. And, you know, it's a really special moment. And I feel like I was able to have a moment like that when I was hearing you sing for the first time, because, like I said, I just don't get to hear old country music anymore. And that was my childhood. It reminded me of my grandmother. It reminded me of so many people. And so I really appreciate you for being able to inspire a feeling in a moment like that. And I'm looking forward to following all your music. Of course, I'm already subscribed on my personal channels. I'm looking forward to following your music for many, many years, my friend.
Well, thank you very much. And I'd like to say that I'm also on Spotify. That's where...
That's the important one.
That's the important one I hear. My music's on there, but I don't personally listen to music on Spotify because I'm such an old soul. I'd rather buy the physical album or CD. But my music is on there, and again, Cutter Elliott, ELLIOTT, and I'm hoping, like I said, I'm in the early stages of writing some new material, and I'm hoping at some point to release these new songs. So, but I don't have a date yet. But I am in the process of writing some new material.
That's fantastic. Well, friends and family, the man who walked through the burning ring of fire himself and has plenty of wisdom to share as a result. Cutter Elliott, I really appreciate you spending some time with me today, Cutter.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you for the call. Hopefully we can do it again.
I'm looking forward to it. We most certainly will. And until the next time, I will be looking forward to seeing this new music when you post it.
Sounds great. Thank you very much.
All right, Cutter. Take care now.
You too.